Hi. So, what do we do now? We have a Democratic president that's going to be in 2 months, and we have at least 57 senators and a solid majority in the House. And the big issue is, what are we going to do about the economic situation? Because it's getting more serious. The jobs report that came out yesterday said that we have lost over 200,000 jobs in October, and our unemployment rate is already up to 6.5%. There's no sign that this is going to turn around in the next couple of months. It looks like we're going a lot higher than that, at least to 8%. Who knows? We could get all the way to 10. I hope it doesn't go that far, but we better be prepared for something. So what we really need now, since a number of things. Private investment is not going to go up anytime soon. There's simply not the strength in the economy to support that. Consumer spending is at a dead end because consumers are buried down in credit card debt. They're going to have to start paying off debts and learning habits of saving, which means that their consumer demand will be down for quite some time. And what we also, monetary policy is probably not going to work very well, given the financial crisis. Cutting interest rates, well, first of all, the Fed funds rate is already down to, a 0.5 percentage point. So we're pretty much all the way to zero, which is where Japan was in the 1990s. So there's not much that can be done there either. Where does that leave us? Well, the only answer at this point is to undertake massive government fiscal policy. Have the government run a large deficit. It could be as much as $1 trillion next year. But basically, this fiscal stimulus is going to have to be much bigger than the one we had last year. I'd say about 3 to 4 times the size. We're talking about $500 billion here. And we would be spending that money on things such as food stamps, extending unemployment benefits so that, we'll talk about why in a minute, but extending unemployment benefits, providing aid to state governments who otherwise would have to cut back jobs and services, rebuilding our infrastructure, our roads and bridges, improving our mass transit. That's a big one that we'll have to get to eventually. And that's pretty much what the fiscal program is going to have to look like. Unemployment benefits will help ease pain for people who've lost their jobs, but they also will put money in the hands of people who are going to spend it to make ends meet so that they don't end up destitute. That's good both for their security and for pumping money into the economy. The same thing goes with food stamps. Same thing goes for aid to local and state governments, because otherwise they would have programs on the chopping block, and this way it keeps people hired, keeps people spending money more than they would otherwise, at least. And then on the infrastructure side, it takes labor to build the roads and bridges back up and to improve our mass transit, so that'll create some jobs, and it will pump money into the economy in a way more directly than anything else the government can do. And that will pretty much have to be our stimulus policy for the next year or two. And there are some other more important structural changes that are going to have to be done. For example, we should continue with the financial crisis. We need to continue relieving some of the problems there. Also hoping that making it so that the bailout money will come back to the taxpayers in some way or another, rather than just be squandered in golden parachutes. There has to be solid oversight there. Otherwise, we're not going to have support for any of these policies, and it will be a nasty moral hazard bailout that doesn't really fix the problem. Also needs to be stricter regulation of the financial industry, to take this shadow banking system and bring it under scrutiny in the way that the traditional banks have long been accounted to. There's been too much shady lending and roundabout ways of wrapping up bad loans in securities and derivatives to make them look good, and then spreading them out through the financial system. And then all of a sudden, when it becomes obvious that it's out there, all the banks become scared, and activity starts to shut down. We can't let that continue, so there's going to need to be more regulations. And then healthcare. Healthcare is the one thing that is, in more than anything else, is probably going to get attacked as being, oh, we can't handle that now. The recession and the budget deficit's too big. We're going to have to put that off. Well, there are some programs which might have to be put off for a little while with regard to what the government spends and how much it spends. But there are healthcare reforms that can be enacted immediately that have little cost to the government's budget, relatively. One thing would be fixing the Medicare prescription drug plan so that it's not a windfall for drug companies. Another thing to do would be to start regulating the health insurance industry to stop them, legally preclude them from denying coverage to people because of medical records or because of credit history or a number of other things that cause them to cherry pick recipients and actually make it impossible for some people to get health insurance. That's not right. That's not fair. And that can be stopped with government regulation. The next thing that we're going to have to do is well, there's a number of more fundamental reforms that go beyond this basic plan. These are ones that I would like to see happen. In order to make them happen, we're going to have to push really hard from below. One of them is to get us back to where we can start organizing private sector workers into unions again, because their wealth has been flowing to the top for far too long, and it's time that labor have a chance to demand its fair share of the national income. And stronger private sector unions are the way to go about that. There's been an unfortunate case where the public unions have been the ones that have been really strong for the past years, and they're basically taking their pay from the taxpayer, and it makes unions look bad. If you have it in the private sector, though, they're not taking money from the taxpayers. They're taking it from CEOs and shareholders and rich people, and that's fine. You're spreading the wealth out in a way so that those who do hard work every day are the ones who are getting rewarded. And then with regard to healthcare, I would say I'd be willing to make the tax increases on the upper 1 to 0.5% of Americans much steeper than Obama has been proposed in order to raise more revenue, till we start moving toward a semi-single-payer system, one where anybody who wants to can buy into a public health insurance program, not non-profit, non-capitalistic health insurance, and then have it set up so that if you're on this public plan, you can go to any doctor, and any medical doctor can bill the public plan. Charge people a premium initially, but make it on a sliding scale so that the poor and near poor don't have to pay anything, and the middle class gets rebates, and the rich pay full price. That would basically be my health plan. Energy and such, create more incentives and continue the research grants for renewable energy and green jobs. That could be the next driving engine of our economy, by the way, after the technology boom of the 90s and the housing boom of the 2000s. 2010s could be the green boom. And that, in a nutshell, sums up Bonneromics. It's probably not going to be, Obamanomics is probably not going to live up to Bonneromics, but hopefully it'll come at least somewhat close to that vicinity. Thank you.